Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm Alan Gator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 64. Today is Wednesday, January 17th, 2024. This is a video mainly about cross stitch. Sometimes I put books and what I'm watching on TV and life at the end. So it's been about 2.5, 3 weeks since my last video. Thank you to everyone who watched that video and commented on it. I really appreciated all the love and the feedback I got on my finishes from 2023. And if you are a new viewer, welcome. I hope that you like what you see. And if you do, please click on that subscribe button. I hope everyone who's in the Northern Hemisphere is surviving this cold snap that we're in. I'm in Northern Florida, so we were one of the lucky states that did not get snow this past week, but it did actually get below freezing last night where I live. So it's now a bright, sunny, cold morning. My husband and I decided not to go to the gym this morning because we were afraid of ice on the roads. And while there wouldn't have been that much, we did have a lot of rain yesterday in case there were puddles or something that didn't evaporate. But let's face it, Floridians don't know how to drive on ice, and it would have been a scary event out there if there were ice. So we just decided to stay home. It's already above freezing now. We'll be fine. So with that, I am going to jump into the stitching and show you what I have done since my last video. So I actually have a start and finish, a SAF as they like to call it. Not yet an FFO, but I will have to FFO it quickly because I am participating in the ATC, which is the Artist Trading Card Swap that is hosted by Laura, Stitching at the Shore. And so I stitched this one up pretty quickly for her for the swap. So this is what I finished. This is a little winter penguin. This was charted by Doreen Jones. It was a freebie that I actually someone gave it to me at a retreat, but it was a freebie. I'm pretty sure from either her Facebook page or her website or something. And so there was at the bottom of the pattern a block of ice that the penguin was standing on and some snowflakes and stuff. I chose not to do that, partially because the requirements of the trading card, I think, are 2.5 by 3.5 inches. And this is smaller than that, but not much smaller. Certainly putting the block of ice would have increased it. This is just a scrap piece of fabric I have. It's a 32 count linen. This was left over from the Biscornu that I participated in from the Jingle Ball for the class of the Blue Flower. So I had quite a bit of fabric left. So I just took a scrap piece of it and stitched on it. And if I can, the fabric, it's witch out, and it has these little stars and triangles or snowflakes on it. And if I can fussy cut correctly and get within the measurements, I will certainly try and get this snowflake in and maybe some of these triangles. I really should have positioned it a little bit better so that a little bit over that way so we would have gotten the whole snowflake. But I could definitely stay within that 2.5 margin. Anyhow, I still obviously have to put this on the paper. I had thought I'm not the most artistic person when it comes to paper crafting and stuff, but I think looking at the size of this, I'm not going to have a chance to do anything but just put it on a piece of cardstock or something and then right on the back. I don't think I'm going to be able to embellish it. And to be honest, since I'm not that comfortable doing it, that might be the best solution anyhow. So that is my start and finish. I also have another finish since not another finish. Whew, that would be a lot for me. Another start from my last video, and this is the Heaven and Earth Designs. This is it's Tintern Abbey, and it's artwork by Samuel Coleman, and I believe that the piece is actually much bigger than this. So this is part of the Heaven and Earth Designs stitch along, and there were 10 patterns, and you pay $10, you picked one of the patterns, and you can participate in the SAL, and it's a year-long SAL. So you know what the whole thing is. The first part of the pattern, I think, that I got for this one came here. So it's a lot of fun being in the Facebook group, just sort of seeing everyone's pieces come to light. I will say this is like the most mellow of it. And sorry if you can hear that. That is the garbage delivery. Anyhow, this, and so I want to say maybe the people who chose to select this one are also mellower people. So I don't see this one posted as much. I know people are working on it, but I just don't see it that much. And I'm going to be honest, given the colors, it's a lot of brown. I mean, it's like, how many shades of brown can I put into this? So this is probably about 1,500 stitches or so. And obviously it's a new and a full coverage. not looking like much, but it literally is like how many shades of brown. This little bit here is the very top of the pattern. I didn't start exactly at the upper left-hand corner simply because I wanted to pick a color that had a little bit more so I could get a framework in and then come back. But even the sky, you can kind of see here, the sky isn't blue. It's like the very top 4 stitches are 842. So that will give you a sense. It's lighter than the rest of it, but it's going to be a very subtle pattern. Now that is not a great printout. So it's a little bit more vibrant than that, but not much. But I just love the peaceful nature of that. And I wanted to do something a little bit different for this sow. There is a thing that if you stitch the whole thing, which is the pieces all ranged from 58 to 61,000, obviously only one, then if you stitched the whole thing, you got all 10 patterns for free, plus 2 patterns off of the Heaven and Earth Designs website of your choice. If you do 4 full pages of it, then you get all the 10 patterns for free. There is no way I'm going to complete this thing. I've already, that was the only way I was even going to allow myself to participate, because while I certainly do a lot more than 60,000 stitches a year, that would have been between, 20-25% of my stitching for the year. And I didn't want to put that much time into one piece. So I made a decision that I'm just going to go for the 4 pages. I certainly don't want to stitch all 10 patterns, but there are a couple cute ones out there. I had a hard time deciding which one I wanted. So I thought if I go for 4 pages, I can get all the patterns and then decide in the future if there are any of them that I want to stitch. So anyhow, that is Tinturn Happy. All right, the next piece is one that I've been showing forever. This is here at Hawk Run Hollow by Carriage House Samplings. And so I made a decision to go down and then down and then across the bottom. So I am now in the December block, which is a full coverage block. So I've got most of it buried, but you can see I have all that stuff done here. This is the December block. So I know that I haven't shown a lot of my pieces since October, which was my last sort of regular video. So I probably hadn't shown you any of this. So this is the start of the December block. So starting to get in, I don't know if it's a mountain or a hill covered in snow, and then the sky. There's a whole lot of black in there. But it's coming along nicely, and it is actually fairly easy stitching. This is done on a 36 count. Picture this plus. I don't have oh, here we go. Fortunately, I put it right on the cover. What it is 36 count heartland. So that is where that is now. So that is Heaven and Earth Designs. And this again is a really easy one to pick up and just work on. All right. The next piece I have is Portrait of Veronica. This is a piece I'd like to get done by the end of the year. Of course, I said that last year I wanted to get it done and didn't finish it. So here is where I am now. So basically I mentioned before, I thought I had a mistake somewhere in here. I did the skim 1/1, and so I'm wondering if somehow just around in there I lost track, and I had like all the stuff along her arm because I desperately wanted to backstitch her arm. So I had done all those stitches and was wondering how much of any of this do I need to pull out. I decided rather than trying to count off 1/1 skim, which would be really hard, I made a decision to come all the way down, do the bottom, and then work my way up. So that's where I am now. I'm really working my way up. I did a lot of this white and then a lot of this sort of light greenish, aquaish, tealish, whatever color you want to call it in here, probably like the 964, if I recall correctly. So I was doing that and I made it all the way up here and I determined this is correct and this stuff is correct. So now I need to just get a little bit more up to the black. And if I do that, I'll figure out if I have to make a mistake. But I'm very excited. Like if the only thing I have to rip out is some of the black, that is, it's better than like thinking you have to rip out all of this, especially with all the back stitching and all that. And again, I probably wouldn't even have to rip out all the black. It might just be a stitch off. But I honestly think there probably is a mistake in the arm. but I was not counting off the arm. I was actually counting off the bodice because, again, with 1/1 stitching, it's hard to count. So and then this probably is right. And if there's a mistake in the arm, it looks fine to me, and I will just base everything off the dress, not off the arm, and we'll be all good to go. So this is a 32 count Witch Out fabric Star Sapphire. It's linen, and this is actually the called for fabric. I needed it. This piece was a little bit bigger than a fat quarter, so when I went to order a fat half from 123 Stitch in 2019, 2020, whenever I started this, well, I started in 2020. I don't remember exactly when I ordered the fabric. I just, the prices obviously for hand dyed are expensive, so this is not hand dyed. Stitching on it is fine, but the fabric is quite stiff, so I know a lot of people have that about Witch Hilt, that I guess they put a lot of sizing or something in it, and so it's a bit stiff. But once I get into the Q-snap, it's fine. It's fine to stitch. All right, so that is Portrait of Veronica. Next one I have to show you this is Jane Eyre from the Stitching Book Club. This was a stitch along that she did. I think it started in late 2022, and we saw the whole pattern ahead of time. So it was not a mystery, but she had it broken out that we could read a few chapters of the book and stitch a different section, and she had those married up. So it would be like a stitch along. It just wasn't a mystery. Needless to say, I did not keep up at all. I tried. I started it when we were supposed to and didn't even finish the first part. So now I'm trying to catch up. This is done on a 32 count fabric it's a Fortnite fabric. I don't have the name off the top of my head. But here's where I am. So I also would like to get this one done in 2024, and made a lot of great progress since I last showed this. And so I know I put in the word Jane, started the E for air, probably finished a lot of the decorative stuff. I know I had Charlotte Bronte in before, but a lot of the decorative stuff around Jane. Brought the line all the way over to the border. And so I am trying, even though obviously the stitch along is long over, I am still trying to follow her stitch along instructions in terms of do this section, do that section. The part that I might deviate from is, for some reason, on that border, this border here, she has you do this part of the border and this part of the border together, but it doesn't fit in a Q-snap. So, like even an 11 by 11, it doesn't quite fit. So, and because it's a lot of color change, I may just go ahead and do the top one since I'm finishing up the Jane Eyre part, and then we'll continue to follow on what she suggests. Again, there's no difference if you do it one way or the other. It's just if you're trying to follow the stitch along. The next one was one of my Whip Go draws for this year. As I mentioned in my planning video, I don't have a traditional Whip Go board. I have everything marked out 1 through 25. I have a stack of index cards, which I'm going to pull. You probably are seeing more of my back than you needed to. So I have just a stack of index cards that I use. And when I stitch on something, let's say I stitched on Stars Bright, it goes to the bottom of the stack. This is not a perfect pile by any means. Things fall off of tables or whatever. I do have them secured in a way. I don't want to put a rubber band around it because then, it's always a pain to put that on and off. But sometimes it falls. It's not a big deal. I know generally what I have worked on, and I certainly know what the top card is because it's always staring at me going, where got me? But anyhow, so the numbers for this month were 22 and 9. So I just literally went through and said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Pulled the 9th card, did the same, and then just kept going until I hit 22. And those are the pieces that I will work on. If it was something, I have a goal for all of my pieces that I had started by the end of 2022. And if I had achieved that goal already, it was just to work on it for a day. And if it was a new piece, then that I started in 2023, then it was just to work on it for a day. So this was one that I started in 2023. So I just had to work on it for a day. And this is Glendon Place, Horn of Plenty. And so I worked on it for a day, but it was a good day. And I got in over 500 stitches. And so here's where it is. So this is stitched on a 32 count even weave from Grace Notes Fabrics called Andrew. And basically I just put a lot of stitches in the top of the actual horn. Yeah. And so I really love this piece, but I really want to get the horn done first because it's the least fun part for me. It's easy stitching and it's, it's coming along and I think it looks great, but I think it's all of those colors. I did start with the colors here, simply worked my way here. So somewhere down here is the center. There are beads. There is, from Rainbow Gallery, the silk lame, I think it's what it's called. The sparkly silk. It's gorgeous. It's so much fun to stitch with. This is a lot of fun, but I just wanted to get this part done because for me it's the least interesting, and I was afraid if I did all the fun stuff, then I would not get this done. So again, I'd like to leave, I would save my dessert for last, which is the bright, colorful, fun stitching. But it's all vegetables and fruit. So while fruit can be dessert, I'm of the mind more sugar is better. Just kidding. That's my taste buds. Life, more sugar is not better. We need to be healthy. So anyhow, sorry, that's my little lecture. So the next piece I worked on was Autumn and Stars Hollow. This is a 4-part series from the Black Needle Society. And it was a box that you can purchase every year. I think they also have it later that you can just purchase patterns, but I've been purchasing the boxes. The last box is supposed to come, which I've already paid for, and it's supposed to ship, I think, in February. And so this is Autumn. They went, you can see on the back here. So that's Autumn. Spring, we already received. Summer, and then winter. So I am behind, let's just say. I'm still working on the first block, Autumn, so I'm quite far behind, but here's where I am now. So I finally finished this skirt. I had already done quite a bit in the skirt, but I had a few little blocks that I needed to finish. I did a lot up in this window here. You can't really see it, but you can't see it at all. But this is a football, so I did the white of the laces of the football. And then I got the word Luke's in here. This will be a coffee mug in there. So made some good progress on this. Oh, and I also filled in the sort of yellowish there of the cornstarch box. And if you know the series, you understand the references, why the skirt and the football and the Harvard Yale pennants and the cornstarch. And if you don't watch the series, you're probably like, why are you stitching a box of cornstarch? But it's a running theme in the show, sort of. Anyhow, the next piece I have is Artisy Old World Map, large. This is my oldest piece, so I do try and make sure it gets love. I started it in December 2019, and 2019 is when I switched from being a monogamous stitcher to a not monogamous stitcher. But they all know about each other, so it's not cheating. So anyhow, here is where I am. So you really can't, the light, there we go. Maybe that's a little better. I am also working on a challenge where I have to put in 1,000 white stitches. And I'm kind of in the middle of it and I have to work on it for a while. And then I'm like, I just need a break. But I've got all the white stitches in here and white stitches down here. And that is mainly what I worked on. I may have put in before that challenge started. Since you saw this last, I may have put in a little bit here. I think all this stuff across just to give me something to count off of. So that is Old World Map. And I want to give it more love this month as well. Next piece is Sunset Koala. Sorry for the poor printing with the lines. Those are not actually on the pattern. This is charted by the Cross Stitch Studio, and the artwork is by something called Krylone. And this was my second Whip Go piece. And here is where it is now. So I had a challenge where I had to put in pink stitches. So I did a lot. I don't know if you call that a forehead, whatever you call the top of a bear's head. So I put in about 300 stitches of pink there. And then I've come over here and started pulling colors to put in the koala ear because I've been staring at the ear for a long time and I just want to get it done. So I'm doing this 1/1 full cross on a 22 count hardanger. And the color is sort of like an ivory color. So because I had not achieved my goal in this, I do want to put 1,000 stitches in. I've put in about 700 now, so I need to put in about another 300 in this to achieve my goal. Next piece that I worked on is Evening Romance from Artisy, artwork by Mark Keithley, sorry. So that is a lovely little piece. This is the piece that I finally got Pattern Keeper. I have a paper pattern that I had purchased, and I was able from Artisy to get the electronic version free of charge because I was able to show them the receipt that I had actually purchased the hard copy pattern. So here's where I am now. So because it was a paper pattern, I was working on it page by page, but now that I have Pattern Keeper, I've just been picking symbols and going down. This is the piece that I am using for winter and full coverage fanatics. So it will continue to come out for another couple of months. Ideally, during that time, I'd like to finish this page. I've gotten great progress on this. I've put in probably 1,000 stitches already this month. Obviously, quite a bit more. You can see there's a lot of white space there. This is just an 18 count Ada, nothing special. I will say, when I put this into Pattern Keeper, I had stitched things correctly. I somehow can't transfer from a paper, like looking at what I've highlighted on a paper pattern to what I have put in Pattern Keeper. I can't do that. There were hundreds of stitches I had marked that I had stitched that I had not. I had things that and then the flip side, things that I had already stitched that I hadn't marked. And I think it was just, I must have gotten off with the lines in Pattern Keeper. And so just trying to keep track of, the first time I did it, I think I spent more time fixing Pattern Keeper or what I had marked in Pattern Keeper than I had actually spent time stitching. But and I still find a mistake from time to time as I pull out a different color. But those mistakes are much fewer in between. It may be a couple of stitches and not hundreds of stitches. So, and once obviously I finish that page, that issue will no longer affect me. And this is quite frankly a little bit more than a page. Actually, it's a page and like maybe a column and a half because the last page is a very skinny page. And it's the same with the next one as well. So this is Green Dancer from Artisy, artwork by Edgar Degas. Same thing where I had a paper pattern. Fortunately for this one, because I had done so much of those, these are 3 pages across. It's a very skinny pattern, 3 pages across, that I have made mistakes, but because so much of it was done, it wasn't nearly as bad. So what I'm doing with this right now is I do have a few ninja stitches in there that I need to complete. So I'm choosing those colors and then just bringing them down. So obviously you can see I was choosing colors from here for a while. So you get a lot of these pretty greens. And then occasionally there'll be like a gray or something. And that's why it's like one over here. And then that color came down, and that's the stage part. So my goal right now is just to finish, like this is pages 4, 5, and 6. Just to keep picking the colors in there and doing it that way until I finish it, and then I'll figure out how I'm going to work on it next. A big part of me wants to, when I move the Q-snap, I've moved this to an 8.5 by 11 because that fits better in my bag, but I don't think I can get all the last 6 pages in this, so I may put it sideways and do it that way. I want to, I think, work on the stage because that's the more boring part. Get that part over so I can get to the beautiful colors and finish off doing that. So that is Green Dancer. And this is one I'd like to finish this year. And it's only about, I think my calculation was $1,500 a month to finish it. So it's totally doable. I'll show you my last piece. This is Simple Pleasures, artwork by Chris Dunn, charted by Pain Free Crafts. Absolutely loving this one. And here is where I am. So this one was supposed to be my evening focus piece, like I did with Cats in the Toy Box. But I have totally changed how I'm stitching in the evening, and we'll probably do that for a while. So this, I did get some of it in. I love how this is the window where you can see the snow outside. So you can start to see some of the frame of the window coming in. I was really excited to see that. Again, a lot of browns, but just love the way you can see the detail of the straw coming in here. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I was like, this was going to be my evening piece, and I was going to intersperse it with Green Dancer and make sure every month I hit the target, as well as hitting the target for Tintern Abbey. But when I realized with that I would have, Tintern Abbey needs about 2,600 stitches a month to get, if I did the math right, and I'm still not sure about my math, it needs about 2,600 stitches a month to hit the 4 full pages, and then it's 1,500 on Green Dancer. So that right there is about 4,000 stitches, which means that this is not going to be a focus piece, but it's definitely out there. It will be worked on. And if I, it's a very easy, relaxing stitch. Again, it's with Pattern Keeper. I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'm just sort of rotating them in and out. Right now I'm focusing a lot on Tintern Abbey because I'm participating in Full Coverage Fanatics. They're doing each month a weekly theme that if you want to participate. So this month it's Nicely New. So it's stitch either on a brand new project or a new, brand new project or your newest one. Sorry, I got distracted. I had cats in the room. They always distract me. And they never want to be on camera. So anyhow, so Tintern Abbey is it. So I'm focusing on this week. I'm hoping that by the time the week is over, I will have hit my stitches on that. I will pick up Green Dancer. I only need a couple hundred more, I think, to get to that goal. And then Simple Pleasures will be worked on for the rest of the month. All right, so that is all of the stitching I have to show. I do have some purchases that I'd like to show you. I was very fortunate for Christmas. I got some gift certificates. And as well as this goes a little bit into my plans. So this was something I had actually purchased a while ago. This goes into plans. I don't think I ever showed this. This is from Heart and Hand. This is Blooming Tiny Town. I am participating in a round robin sal, not with the same, okay. This is a different group of stitchers than I talked about last year. And basically we all have picked a tiny town, and there may be duplicates, I'm not sure. And we're all just going to stitch a little bit, mail it to the next one. I think there's 5 of us participating, and so we'll go that way. So so I had this ready to go. So I need to start this so I can start participating in the sal. I am also with that same group of friends from last year that I did Haunted Mansion. We are doing what we're calling a non-round robin, which everyone chooses their own piece. And someone's spinning a wheel, calling a number, and we all just stitch that number. So we break out the pattern. That starts in February. So I showed that in my last video. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. Okay. Now for gift acquisitions, where I was kindly given gift cards and I purchased. So I got a gift card to Brick City Cross Stitch, which is a store about 45 minutes to an hour away, depending on traffic. And I purchased some beads and stuff. I'm not going to show all of that, but I purchased Green Rhapsody from Rosewood Manor. Beth, who is Steadfast Stitcher, her birthday was in December, her 60th birthday, and so she asked anyone who was interested to start a Rosewood Manor pattern. It could be any pattern of your choice, any time in the month of December. She actually started 2. And so I started Owlsmore Cottage. I'm not sure I showed that in my last video or not, but that's what I started. I haven't worked on it certainly since my last video. So I didn't buy this for the sal, but there are so many awesome Rosewood Manor patterns out there that when I saw these at Brick City, I just had to buy them. So, and I also bought the Dreaming of Autumn Leaves. I have seen maybe not the whole thing stitched up, but certainly pieces of this, and it is stunning. I don't think, like everyone says, the cover photos don't do it justice. So really, really like this one as well. And then I have Summer Quaker from Leela Studio as an ongoing whip. And this is the spring one. I still need to get the autumn one. So there's that. So I got that. And then I got very confused because I just have an Excel spreadsheet with all my charts so I can see what I have. And in my mind, when I started typing in Spring Quaker, and it popped up, populated because it could see that I had Spring Quaker in there before. And I thought, wait, and then it said Rosewood Manor. And then because these two are Rosewood Manor, and my mind was just, confused. And then I realized I do have Spring Quaker by Rosewood Manor, which is all of those lovely, there's lovely things I see a lot of people working on. Not this. Okay, cat is freaking out. I'm going to have to open the door. Please hold. Okay, the cats have been released. Sorry about that. I have to shut the door because if my husband is making noise. I don't want you all to hear it. He's now moved into a different room. He's making noise, but I doubt you can hear what he's watching, which is good because it's some version of The Walking Dead. We don't need to hear zombies going on. All right, anyhow, so other things. I also got a gift certificate from Amazon, used it to buy some non-cross-stitch related things, but I can't help myself. I have to buy something. I'm like, some of the stuff is functional, which is fine, but then I always need to buy something for me. Not that other stuff I buy isn't for me, but so the first thing I bought was a Dimensions Gold Collection, and this is it's called Holiday Village. And I've seen a number of people stitching this, and it's such a pretty pattern. Just all of the details in it. So really, really lovely. And not my normal scene, but when I see people stitching it and hear people like really looking at the pattern, and so I really wanted to get this. And I know it's hard for LNSs to stock dimension kits, but I think my Joann's doesn't. I mean, they have a few dimensions kits, but it's kind of the same ones over and over, and they don't have someone who's out there actively looking to say, hey, what's interesting, and so a lot of them don't appeal to me, which is fine. Like, we don't have to love everything, but I don't see them in many places, and so I look on, and so it's hard because I really like to see patterns or things stitched up. And so I do end up, whenever I get a gift certificate from Amazon, buying a dimensions kit, making sure that it really is dimensions. That's the other thing. I go, actually, when you go to Amazon, you can click on the dimensions store. I really want to make sure that I'm buying an authentic dimensions kit and not some knockoff, because that happens too. So even through Amazon, people are selling, it's one thing if you're buying a used kit, that's great. But if you're buying from a seller who's calling it and then it's not a dimensions kit, that's a bit frustrating. And then the last thing, I was watching Mandy Parker, and she showed this book, and usually I'm like, okay, I watch the video and then eventually I'll go figure it out. Nope. I had to pause our video, add to cart, knowing I had a gift certificate. I didn't actually click buy till later because I wanted to put several things in the cart. And I got this called Cross Stitch with Gratitude from Emma Congdon. Also, Stitcherovia is also what she is known for. I'm not going to do a full walkthrough, but there are like 20 patterns in here. This is sort of like her Cross Stitch for the Soul, Cross Stitch for the Earth. It's a book similar to that. A lot of color patterns, but so here is one that I think is really cute. The cats have been fed. Don't listen to them. Don't listen to their lies. So true. And then there was one other page I was just going to show, which has a few more of the patterns here. Not that one. That's the cover. But just a few more patterns. Hiss off. Feed me and tell me I'm pretty. Things like that. And I like the way a lot of the patterns also do this, where the kitties are not real cat colors. They've got the patterns like normal cats. Like, this is a tabby, but obviously I have never seen a tabby with purple stripes. Maybe you have? I have not. All right, so that is my stitchy content. I'm going to basically keep going with trying to hit my whip go. I am participating in Whip Frenzy, which is hosted by Whip Warriors, which is now a closed Facebook group. It's a week this time, so I think what I'm going to do is kind of, try and touch a number of projects. But if I have a stitching session, it may be, it's to get between 1 and 200 stitches on each of your whips. And I think my goal is just like stitch in the afternoon to get, if I stitch 300 or 400 stitches in that session, post it after 200, but I'm not going to stop and switch whips. I'm just I'll keep going. Because if I tried to change whips every 1 to 200 stitches, I think I would just go crazy for a week. I can do it like for a day. But let's be honest, you can do a frenzy for a short period of time, but when you're talking about a week, then that becomes a little bit more sustained. Other than that, just having fun with my games and stitching and enjoying things. So that is all for the stitchy content. I'm going to move into books and life and what I'm watching. So if you're just here for the stitchy content, thank you for watching. And if you are here for a little bit more, thank you for staying. So moving on to what I've been reading. So I have to say I started 2024 a little bit slow with my reading. I don't know why exactly. I liked, I don't want to say all the books, but most of the physical books I read I liked. I just think I wasn't committing myself to the reading time I needed. And then I know I had at least one bad audiobook. But one book I do want to talk about that I read that just was amazing was The Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. This is not a new book. It was published originally in 1993, but it is about a dystopian future, and dystopian future is usually not my genre. But I've read other things by Octavia Butler, and I think she's a brilliant writer, and so I was willing to go on this journey with her, and I'm glad I did, although very disturbed at times by it. And basically, it is about it's the lead character of the book, named Lauren, is a teenager, but this is not a YA book by any means. I think she wanted to have a character who couldn't remember much the time before things really fell apart. And so she needed it to be a teenager. So it actually starts in 2024, which is, the little synopsis I read actually said it started in 2025, but no, it starts in 2024. And it is about a society, it takes place in Southern California, but basically society has fallen apart. And unlike a lot of dystopia where there is a disease or a war or something that has really wiped, or zombies, whatever, has wiped things out, this is, I would say, much more of society dissolving by 1,000 cuts, to mix a metaphor. And basically, it's the short-term decisions we make that, have consequences until we can no longer hold together what we have. So climate change plays a role. They're in Southern California. There's a downpour in the book that lasts several days, but it had the first rain at all in 6 years. And there are the way that companies are allowed to treat their workers, and the way that police will only support certain communities, and just the little decisions that are made by government leaders and what people are allowed to get away with, and how that has led to the dissolution of society. And it is just a fascinating read. Again, very disturbing, and you can see where the threads come. Now, because it was written in 93, I mean, the internet existed, but it was not certainly in any way, shape, or form what it is today. So, there will be people, oh, see, it didn't happen. That's not the point. You can see a lot, of how, what was there in 93 and how some of those issues continue today. Yes, if she wrote the book today, her 30 years from now would look different. But brilliant book. I highly recommend it. My husband is convinced that someone at some point will make a limited TV series out of it. But definitely worth a read. The show I wanted to mention, it's one called The Buccaneers, and this was not what I expected when I watched it. It is based on I don't want to call it a novel, but based on the writing of Edith Wharton. My understanding is that The Buccaneers is a novel. It was never actually finished by her. It was something she started when she was young, and then she moved on to write other things and never finished it. So it's not clear to me how much of the series is based on what she had written, and how much, it's one thing, they always deviate a little bit from what is written, but how much they had to create to get to an ending. The basic premise, it sounds very light and fluffy, but it really isn't. It is about daughters of wealthy Americans who are in New York City during the Gilded Age, who want to send their daughters, they want their daughters to marry titled Englishmen, and the Englishmen want to marry them because they're losing, either they're second sons, or their estates have lost the money, and so they need a huge infusion of cash, so the dowry that comes with the young lady, those kinds of things. And so you sort of think, okay, is it going to be a Bridgerton thing? Is it going to be like The Gilded Age on HBO? What is it going to be? And it really is something very different. It is about sort of universal truths about what goes on in a marriage, what goes on in friendship, how do you get through it? Obviously, the limitations of what women in society in the 1870s and the choices they had and the roles they were expected to play. Obviously, those are time-bound, but a lot of the relationship stuff, it really isn't. And it's very well acted. And so I would say the first episode is not that great because you think it's going to be some light, fluffy piece, but as it goes on, it's absolutely brilliant. And it's on Apple Plus, so I know that's not accessible to everyone, but if you do have it, I do highly encourage you to watch it and to wait until after the first episode before, watch 2 episodes before you make a decision if you want to continue with it or not. And it's been out, because we actually watched it, I think, in December, so it's been out for at least a month, if not longer. Okay, and now I'm going to move a little bit into life stuff. So I mentioned in my last video, and this is still not very happy things. In my last video, I mentioned that my father is in the hospital, and he is still in the hospital, and it's definitely 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. They think they have resolved one problem, and they haven't. They think they've resolved it again, and maybe they have, but then another problem, and like serious problems. So he's been in the hospital now for over 2 months, and we're not looking optimistic about him. I don't want to say getting out, because he might be able to get out of the actual hospital, but certainly life isn't going to be the way it was before. And the question is, can we get him to and when I say a place, I don't mean a physical space, but to a place where he is able to be satisfied with what is going on. He's still promoting treatment. My father is a physician by training, so he knows what he's getting into whenever he signs up for these things. So he's still pushing treatment. So he is still hopeful that he'll be able to get himself to a place where he'll be mentally think that everything he has gone through has been worth it with the surgery. So that is where we are. Other than that, my brother and his family came for New Year's, so it was great to see them. My nieces are 20 and 22, so young adults, and especially with my younger one, it was great to have conversations with her. She's a college student, and it was great to have like adult conversations with her. And we were talking she is really interested in science and might go to medical school, and talking about like hospital care, especially what's going on with my dad, her grandfather, and just having adult conversations, not necessarily about him, but about just healthcare and what is the best way to apply it. It was just wonderful having those conversations with her. And my older niece as well, who is I guess by now she has started her job. Or actually, no, she hasn't. She starts next week. She's moved. She's going to be working in Boston. So she's moved to Boston, and I believe her job starts on Monday. So good for her. She just graduated. She has a real job, but I don't think it's what she wants to make her career. I think it's just sort of helping her get her feet wet and figure out. She will go back to school at some point and figuring out exactly what graduate program she wants to pursue. But other than that, I went with my mother. My parents had tickets to the Gainesville Symphony Orchestra. We're a small town. It's, so they don't have concerts that often. It's I think a semi-professional thing. And it was, so I went with her because my dad obviously couldn't go. So I went with her, which was really fun. But I'm used to going to that, classical concert, and, yes, the conductor acknowledges the audience and all of that, but he's conducting. And this is like after each piece, he'd turn around, have a conversation with the audience. It was just very different. And he would talk about like the pieces, and like they would have like one of them was a piece, the title was in French. And so he had one of the musicians who is I think originally from France come up and made her say the name because he didn't want to say it because he's like, I'll butcher the French language. So it was just, it was a very different and fun experience. So I'm glad I attended that. But I kind of wish, my dad was healthy enough to go, because that would have been a better, even though I wouldn't have been able to go, it would have been a better result. Other than that, I'm stitching, I'm reading, I'm going to visit my father frequently. So that's sort of what's going on with my life. I hope to come back either at the very end of January or early February, trying to stick to my twice a month, or at least showing you my stitching 2 times a month. If I come back in early February, it will be like all January stitching. So that is where I am. So that is all I have for you this time. If you stuck around, thank you so much for sharing my stitching and life journey, and I will look forward to seeing you again. Happy stitching, everyone.